A political fight in the West African country of Sierra Leone erupts into fisticuffs in parliament.
As chambers flare, the two opposing parties trade punches and throw chairs against each other. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. Senate and House of Representatives set to deliberate on 2023 national budget. Philippines note verbal seeks to clarify maritime incident with China. Authorities dramatically rescue a 6-year-old boy from earthquake rubble. Palace appoints Anwar Ibrahim as Malaysia's new prime minister. And BTS Kim Seok-jin enlists in South Korea's mandatory military service. The Senate has passed in the third reading the proposed national budget for 2023. The contingent from the House of Representatives and the Senate would now convene the bicameral conference committee to reconcile the two versions of the budget. Mean Corvera reports.
The bicameral conference committee would start deliberating on the proposed 5.268 trillion peso national budget for 2023 after the Senate passed their version of the proposed government funding last night. Senate Finance Committee Chairman Senator Sonny Angara said the BICAM would reconcile the two versions of the proposed budget. In the Senate version, the chamber transferred 172 million peso confidential funds of the Department of Education and other government agency to maintain and other operating expenses. The Senate has also moved to double or raise to 1,000 pesos the monthly social pension of the indigent senior citizens and increase the funding for the National Disaster Risk Reduction by 31 billion pesos from the original 20 billion pesos approved by the House of Representatives. Angara said they would fast-track the deliberation to be able to submit the copy of the budget to the Office of the President on the first week of December. Angara assured the approved national budget would address the country's recovery from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. The funding also included government's support to ensure food security, revitalize the education sector, and ensure the country's readiness from the effects of climate change. The Senate also allocated funding for the Pantawid Pamilyang Filipino program or 4Ps and assistance to the livelihood of displaced workers. Despite downtrend on the cases of COVID-19 infection, Angara said the 2023 budget would address pandemic threats and strengthen the healthcare system, including establishments of the specialized hospital, especially in the province.
Pondong ito ay pwedeng gamitin sa pag-expand o paglaki ng coverage para sa mga sakit tulad ng dialysis, mental health outpatient services, Z-benefit packages, severe acute malnutrition at iba pang outpatient benefits tulad ng libreng konsulta, libreng lab test at diagnostic services, gamot at mga emergency medical services.
Mean Corvera for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Lawmakers have vowed to work hard to ensure that President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. would sign into law the proposed 5.268 trillion peso national budget for 2023 before their holiday break in December. The lawmakers agreed to fast-track its deliberation at the bicameral conference committee. Nadine Aguilar has more details.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s certification of the proposed national budget as urgent measures help a lot in accelerating its passage in both chambers of Congress. After the Senate approved their version of the budget proposal last night, the House and Senate leadership has agreed to convene the bicameral conference committee on Friday, November 25, to deliberate on the final version of the proposed budget. House Speaker Martin Romualdez said Congressman Elizalde co-chairman of the House Committee on Appropriations, would lead the 14-man contingent of the House panel. Romualdez said there was a mutual agreement between the House and the Senate through an interparliamentary courtesy to reconcile the difference in both versions. Romualdez is hopeful that before the holidays break on December, Congress would be able to submit the proposal to the Office of the President and have it signed by President Marcos before the end of the year. The 2023 national budget highlighted programs for the economic recovery program of the government from the COVID-19 pandemic. Nadine Aguilar, reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Department of Foreign Affairs has formally sought an explanation from the Chinese government regarding its Coast Guard's retrieval of rocket debris off the coast of Pagasa Island. Foreign Affairs spokesperson Maria Teresita Daza said the DFA has sent a note verbal upon the instruction of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Daza said the note seeks clarification from the Chinese side over the incident involving the Philippine Navy and the Chinese Coast Guard last November 20. The DFA would wait for the official comment of China on the matter. China earlier denied it forcefully retrieved the rocket debris, but the Philippine Navy officials stand by their statement that the Chinese Coast Guard vessel blocked a Filipino rubber boat towing the unidentified floating object. Daza also said that as of November 22 this year, the Philippines has lodged 189 protests with the Chinese government involving incidents at the contested waters, 61 of which were made during the current administration of President Marcos Jr.
The 7-day COVID-19 positivity rate in the National Capital Region spiked to 9.2% from 7.4% on November 22nd. Octa Research Fellow Dr. Guido David, in a tweet, said, unless the trends change, this looks like the start of another wave of infections in the National Capital Region, as cases will likely start increasing again. From November 14 to 20, the Department of Health logged an additional 8,004 COVID-19 infections. COVID-19 cases averaged 1,143 in the past week, which was 12% lower than the number of infections recorded from November 7 to 13. It is still unknown what causes the spike in COVID-19 infections. However, Octa Research said they are closely monitoring the Omicron subvariant BQ.1.
Government workers will have another round of salary increase in 2023. The Department of Budget and Management, or DBM, said the last tranche of the modification for the salary schedule of civilian personnel pursuant to the Salary Standardization Law, or SSL-5, would be implemented in 2023. The DBM made the clarification in response to the calls of several public sector unions to increase the minimum salary of government workers. However, the DBM noted that any increase in the salary for government workers is carried out through legislative measures.
The Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, has reminded employers that they must comply with the mandatory 13th month pay to its workers before December 24. Labor Secretary Bienvenido Laguesma said the law is obliging employers to compensate their workers with a 13th month pay or equivalent to a 1-month salary. But he said it's up to the company if they want to make special arrangements for their employees for the pay. Laguesma added that all workers are entitled to a 13th month pay, however big or small their salary or position in the workplace is.
Senior Deputy Minority Leader and Northern Samar Congressman Paul Daza wants Congress to investigate the project bid out by the Metro Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, amounting to 1.1 billion pesos. The project is for the National Capital Region, or NCR, fiber optic backbone development. Daza said originally the funding was allocated for the Department of Information and Communications Technology, or DICT, for the allocation of 105,000 free public Wi-Fi hotspots. Daza said part of the allotment is the 3 to 4 billion pesos pesos for MMDA and other local government units or LGUs through a Memorandum of Agreement or MOA. The lawmakers said only Congress could allow the fund transfer among agencies of the government. He added that there is only one bidder in the project, the joint venture of AWIN and Net Pacific Incorporated. Daza exposed that there are no postings on the MMDA website regarding the awarding of the bidding. The congressman also questions MMDA's measure in disbursing the said budget.
We in Congress highlight the sacred duty of sound fiscal management. Interagency transfer of funds, which were already appropriated by law, could only be done with consent of Congress. In this case, it seems we were completely blindsided. Nagawa nila na walang tayong kaalam-alam. For the purpose of due diligence, we have continued to reach out to the DICT so they may share with us a more comprehensive report on the status of the free Wi-Fi for all program. Hopefully, this report will explain exactly why the interagency transfers needed to be done in the first place. More importantly, is the main recipient of this transfer, the MMDA, is spending the money wisely and transparently.
Next on Mata ng Agila International, authorities dramatically rescue a 6-year-old boy. Moscow asserts it is not targeting civilian residences. And Pentagon dodges Ukraine aid question. Mata ng Agila International will be back after this short break.
Na. At hindi lang trip down to memory lane ng peg ng 16th anniversary special ng Moments. Dahil mas pina-espesyal pa ito ng guest host at hubby ni Gladys Reyes na si Christopher Someru.
Nagbabalik po uli yung Moments at kasama niyo po rin po kami mag-asawa.
Wow, host ka, bebe ah.
Hindi, tinatry ko lang. May question ako.
Oo.
Bakit pag nagsasalta ako, di ka nakikinig?
Nakikinig ako.
Hindi.
Hindi ko na siya pinasalita, baka may sabihin pa.
Samahan kami sa isang treasure hunt na puno ng katatawanan, kulitan, at pagbabalik tanaw sa special moments ng programa.
Nag-guess ko na to sa moment?
Oo.
Tao to?
Hindi.
Ano ba ako ginas sa moments na hindi tao? Teka.
Abangan yan ngayong Sunday, 4 to 5 p.m. sa Net 25.
Together, wala talo pag together, let's get together. Sa Net 25.
The news continues here on Mata ng Agila International. In what is being called a miracle rescue, a 6-year-old boy has been pulled from the rubble of a deadly Indonesia earthquake after spending 2 days trapped under debris without food or water. The dramatic rescue captured on camera Wednesday evening revived hopes that survivors could still be pulled alive from the wreckage days after the strong tremor that hit the West Java town of Cianjur on Monday, killing at least 271 people. The video showed rescue workers pulling the boy Azka free from a destroyed home in Cianjur's worst district of Sugenang, wearing the blue shirt and trousers he had on when the earthquake happened. The man who pulled him out of the hole cut in the debris clasped him in both arms as another rescue worker in an orange hat ran after them to hold the boy's hand. Azka, whose last name remains unknown, was then shown calmly sipping a drink held by a soldier as another emergency worker stroked his hair. His mother died in the earthquake, and her body was found hours before Azka's rescue. The boy was found next to his dead grandmother.
Rescuers continue to sift through debris in a search for survivors of a devastating earthquake that struck Indonesia on Monday. The catastrophe has claimed at least 271 lives and injured more than 2,000 people. Survivors are appealing for food and water. Heavy rain and aftershocks have hampered rescue efforts. As of Wednesday evening, 171 aftershocks have been recorded. The shaker has displaced more than 61,000 people who saw their homes flattened and reduced to rubble. Many have returned to their homes, hoping to retrieve personal belongings. 2 villages remain isolated. Search and rescue officials say they have received reports of villagers trapped without food or water. Some are forced to sleep alongside dead bodies. 3 helicopters have been dispatched to drop supplies.
More details now on that deadly shooting that happened during a late-night shift change at a Walmart in the U.S. state of Virginia on Tuesday. A manager opened fire, killing 6 people and wounding 4 others before fatally shooting himself. Investigators remained at the store Wednesday, processing the crime scene. Police have identified the gunman as 31-year-old Andre Bing. Bing had been employed at the store since 2010. Police say 3 of the dead, including Bing, were found in a break room. A 4th person was found dead near the front of the store. The other 3 victims succumbed to their injuries in the hospital. According to police, Bing was armed with a handgun when he was found. The motive has not been determined. In the aftermath of the Tuesday night shooting rampage, there are calls for better gun control. In a statement, U.S. President Joe Biden called on Congress to take greater action on gun reform.
Anwar Ibrahim is appointed Prime Minister by the monarch of Malaysia, breaking the deadlock in politics. This decision was made official by the palace on Thursday, ending a political standoff that had lasted days due to ambiguous election results. The statement from the palace stated that Malaysia's King Sultan Abdullah Sultan Ahmad Shah has approved the appointment of Anwar Ibrahim as the country's 10th prime minister after taking the opinions of their Royal Highness, the Malay rulers, into consideration. Anwar will be sworn in at 5 p.m. local time. Anwar's Pakatan Harapan, or Alliance of Hope coalition, gained the most seats in the weekend election, 82, due to its anti-corruption platform, but it fell short of the necessary 112-seat majority. Muhyiddin Yassin's Perikatan Nasional, or National Alliance coalition, received 73 votes. The 2 opponents had been called by Malaysia's king to end the impasse.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky accuses Russia of committing crimes against humanity after new airstrikes caused widespread power outages in Kyiv. In his address to the UN Security Council, Zelensky asks world leaders to adopt a resolution to condemn all forms of energy terror. WHO says Ukraine's priority this winter would be survival, as millions of residents have been subjected to long periods of no electricity.
Енергетичний терор – це аналог застосування зброї масового ураження. Коли на вулиці мінусова температура, а десятки мільйонів людей внаслідок влучання російських ракет по енергооб'єктах залишаються без електрики, без тепла, без води, це очевидний злочин проти людяності. У світі не повинно залишитись жодної можливості для терору. Саме тому ми звертаємось до наших партнерів за підтримкою для захисту нашого неба. Нам потрібно сучасні ефективні системи ППО і ПРО. І я дякую всім, хто вже допомагає.
Moscow's envoy to the UN, Vasily Nebenzia, asserts the Russian military is using precision weapons against Ukraine's infrastructure. Russia's tactic, as Nebenzia explains, is to disrupt the flow of weapons that the West and its allies are giving to Kyiv with the purpose of prolonging the conflict. He also insists that Moscow is not targeting civilian residences. At the UN Security Council meeting, Nebenzia also tries to clarify that the regrettable damage to residential areas is often caused by Ukrainian air defenses deployed in populated areas. Nebenzia also tells the Western envoys that their reckless flow of weapons to Ukraine has caused many deaths in the region. Yet he has Western and even UN officials continue to uncritically repeat Ukrainian allegations without evidence. He points out the November 15 incident in Poland when a Ukrainian S-300 missile killed 2 villagers in Wodo. The Russian envoy claims that the UN and the West looked the other way when Ukraine shelled the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant and tried to blame Moscow for it.
Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary Sabrina Singh declines to give an exact breakdown of the billions of dollars worth of aid given to Ukraine. U.S. President Joe Biden previously requested an additional $37.7 billion in assistance to Kyiv. Singh insists it would not publicly discuss funding to refill domestic arms stocks amid reports of growing shortages in Kyiv. But she clarifies that Washington assesses its readiness and capability with every security assistance package that they announce. Earlier, the United States said the $21.7 billion of the requested aid would be devoted to both equipment for Ukraine and the replenishment of the defense stocks of the Department of Defense. It did not specify how much would go to each. News sources say repeated weapon shipments to Kyiv have taken a toll on the domestic stockpile. U.S. Army's Chief of Arms Acquisition, Doug Bush, earlier said the military was accelerating its process to procure weapons to make up for shortages. An American newspaper that has seen Pentagon documents claims it will take multiple years to resupply the Army.
Daily COVID cases in China hit a record high since the pandemic began. China recorded more than 31,000 domestic cases on Wednesday. Most of them, over 27,000, showed no symptoms. But the numbers are leaving people on edge, fearing that more lockdowns are coming. Under Beijing's zero COVID policy, even small outbreaks can shut down entire cities and force people into quarantine. Once these numbers exceed the 29,000 cases reported in mid-April when the city of Shanghai was locked down. The numbers are relatively small considering China's population of 1.4 billion.
A crime wave in South Africa shows no sign of abating, according to the latest statistics from the country's police force. Murders, kidnappings, and rapes have significantly increased in the 3 months from July to September. Police Minister Becky Salis says communities are failing to protect some of the most vulnerable people in society.
The crime figures show that aggression and violence are at worrying levels in South Africa. Violence meted not only against women and children, but violence playing out in our homes, on our roads, and even inside public safe spaces such as churches and schools is scary.
Latest figures show more than 7,000 people have been murdered in that 3-month period. Kidnappings have more than doubled to more than 4,000, and rapes increased by 11% to 10,000.
A political fight in the West African country of Sierra Leone erupted into fisticuffs in parliament. Members of parliament were debating a proposed change to the electoral system when the trouble began just before the lunch hour. The change would have allowed proportional representation in next year's election. As tempers flared, representatives from the ruling Sierra Leone People's Party and the oppositional People's Congress began trading punches and throwing chairs. At one point, what appeared to be a large ornamental vase was tossed across the chamber. By afternoon, things quieted down. Security forces threw some members out of the chamber. The government is in favor of the proposed change, but the opposition claims such a measure is unconstitutional.
Authorities in Namibia's capital of Windhoek have taken down a statue of a controversial German colonial officer. Local activists pressured officials to remove the monument. It commemorated Kurt von Francois, a German army officer who has been credited with founding Windhoek. Historians dispute that. Activists say the statue was a reminder of genocide during colonial times. Between 1904 and 1908, German settlers killed tens of thousands of indigenous people in Namibia in what historians have called the 20th century's first genocide. The statue will be stored at a city museum.
The Colombian military has cracked down on an illegal gold mine in the Amazon. The action came following the discovery of a 4-kilometer-long illegal mining area. The military destroyed equipment at the mine. Officials say it belonged to armed groups linked to drug trafficking. Military spokesman Helder Giraldo says it's estimated they were exporting more than 2,200 grams of gold per month. He says that represents an income of $123,000 or nearly 7 million pesos a week.
Coming right up, Peruvian police destroy illegal landing strips to combat drug trafficking. The WHO says immunization against measles dropped due to COVID pandemic. And Germany to end its largest African mission. Stay tuned. With Agila International, we'll be right back.
Kung sinara yung main source ng tubig, ibig sabihin, mawawalan ng tubig!
Ingatan nyo to. Sa anniversary namin nung tiya nyo, ito ibinregalo ko. Kaya meron sa akin monumental value yan.
Putas, nabalik mo na ba?
Handa na ba kayong kiligin? Hindi lang siya good-looking. Adventurous pa. Irresistible. At kaibig-ibig. Kaka-inlove talaga, di ba? Parating na ang man of our dreams. Abangan dito lang sa Net25.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's dance together sa Net25.
Peruvian police are dealing more closely with drug smugglers. This airstrip you see here on your screen is in central Peru. It is one of 64 illegal airstrips that drug police have destroyed this year. The runways are used by planes to transport drugs to neighboring countries. They are located in the vast cocoa growing valley where drug traffickers and guerrillas operate. The guerrillas provide the gangsters with protection in exchange for a cut of the drug profits.
The World Health Organization and the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention are sounding the alarm about the danger of measles. In a report on Wednesday, the two organizations say the number of children being vaccinated against the infection dropped significantly during the pandemic. They estimate that last year alone, nearly 40 million kids missed getting a dose of the vaccine. With outbreaks in more than 20 countries, health officials warned that measles is an imminent threat to every region of the world. Scientists estimate that 95% of the population needs to be immunized to protect against epidemics. The WHO says only 81% of children received the first dose and 71% got a second one. It says those are the lowest global coverage rates since 2008. The majority of measles deaths occur in developing countries like Africa and Asia.
Health authorities say measles have killed 12 children in the western Indian city of Mumbai and surrounding areas. Officials confirm the first death was around October 26 or 27. They say 3 children died within 48 hours. Health reports state that the city had 233 confirmed cases this year, which is a threefold jump from the 90 new cases and 2 deaths reported in 2021. Authorities say the slow vaccination drive due to the COVID-19 pandemic has contributed to the spike in infections. Last Tuesday, an 8-month-old baby who was partially immunized died due to measles. World Health Organization says measles is highly contagious and can cause serious complications, particularly in children less than 5 years old.
3.5 billion people around the world suffer from oral diseases that include tooth decay, severe gum disease, tooth loss, and oral cancers. WHO says this number shows inequalities in access to oral health services, with a huge burden of oral diseases and conditions affecting the most vulnerable and disadvantaged populations. In Washington, D.C., Rosel Feria has the details.
A new global oral health status report published by the World Health Organization shows that almost half of the world's population, that's 45% or 3.5 billion people, suffer from oral diseases. 3 out of every 4 affected people live in low and middle income countries. Over the last 30 years, global cases of oral diseases have increased by 1 billion. WHO says this is a clear indication that many people do not have access to prevention and treatment of oral diseases. Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says oral health has long been neglected in global health. Many oral diseases can be prevented and treated with the cost-effective measures which Dr. Tedros says are outlined in the report. WHO says the report underscores the glaring inequalities in access to oral health services, with a huge burden of oral diseases and conditions affecting the most vulnerable and disadvantaged populations. The health agency further states that people on low incomes, people living with disabilities, older people living alone or in care homes, those living in remote and rural communities, and people from the minority groups carry a higher burden of oral diseases. The most common oral diseases are tooth decay, severe gum disease, tooth loss, and oral cancers. Untreated tooth decay is the single most common condition globally. This affects an estimated 2.5 billion people. Severe gum disease, a major cause of total tooth loss, is estimated to affect 1 billion people worldwide, and about 380,000 new cases of oral cancers are diagnosed every year. Rosel Feria, Washington, D.C., Batad ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
A tax inspector in France has been stabbed to death as he was trying to audit the books of a business owner in the country's northern region. Tax agents held a memorial Wednesday after the 43-year-old victim was found dead Monday in the northern French city of Arras. Authorities say the suspected killer was a 46-year-old antique dealer. Police say the tax inspector and a female colleague were locked up during an audit of the business. Both were tied up. Police say it appears the man was stabbed several times, but the woman was not harmed. The suspect then killed himself with a gun. The union that represents tax officials says the case shows that its members have a potentially dangerous job.
Thousands of members of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, or BNP, have marched en masse in Dhaka. News sources say the BNP members protest against the killing of a student leader by police on Saturday in Bancharampur. The protesters also demand the resignation of the current government officials and call out for new elections. The crowd members say their present leaders cannot solve the country's ongoing energy and economic crisis. BNP leaders and other opposition groups also called for a grand rally in Dhaka, which is scheduled on December 10.
El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele speaks before some 14,000 soldiers gathered in a field near a military barracks on the outskirts of the town of San Juan Opico, 35 kilometers west of San Salvador. In his speech, Bukele stressed the progress of their country's fight against the gangs. According to Bukele, the count of deaths per day before ranges from 20 to 30. And compared to their current situation, the country has been a safer place for passing days and weeks without receiving reports of homicides. Bukele pointed out that the war on gangs, which led to thousands of arrests and sparked criticism from rights groups. To uphold the nation's security, the president ordered the police and soldiers to set up fences surrounding the cities to search and arrest gang members.
Germany announced that it will pull out some 1,100 German troops currently stationed in Mali in May 2024. As part of the UN peacekeeping operation MINUSMA, Bundeswehr soldiers have been deployed in the African country for almost a decade now. Berlin said it will ask the Bundestag to give the deployment one last year-long extension until May 2023. Government spokesman Stefan Hebestreit said such request will bring the mission to a structured end after 10 years. The United Nations has not yet received Germany's official notice that it intends to withdraw or that it intends to continue the mission in Mali. Deputy spokesman Farhan Haq stated that the mission is currently assessing the impact of these withdrawals on its operations. He also said that they are already in discussions with several countries to fill any gaps. Egypt has already pulled out of MINUSMA. Sweden announced its forces would leave by June 2023. UK and Ivory Coast said last week that their soldiers would be leaving soon as well. The United Nations Multidimensional Integrated Stabilization Mission in Mali was established on April 25, 2013 by the UN to stabilize the country after the Tuareg rebellion of 2012.
In search for their right to be recognized on the eve of the UN's International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, more than a dozen of Afghan women protested in Kabul. Since the Taliban returned to power in August last year, Afghan women have been prohibited to have a public life. However, small groups staged flash protests, which were commonly shut down, sometimes violently. Most of the group wore dark sunglasses, veils, and surgical masks to cover their faces while they kept a close eye on the proceedings. A sign carried by one protester says, "We will fight for our rights to the end and we will not surrender." Despite having the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women marked on November 25, UN report shows that violence against women and girls remains the most widespread human rights violation in the whole world. Up next, Uniper rescue to cost Germany extra 25 billion euros. Japan beats Germany in World Cup. And BTS star to begin South Korea military service. More global news coming your way when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka nang mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Ay lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Ngayong linggo sa Cine Throwback.
I remember we were in Paris playing at the Olympia. A telegram came through and said, "Congratulations, boys, #1 in America. Hold your hand." It was like...
Before the plane landed, I could feel New York. It was an incredible sensation. It's like, come on down, boys.
Don't let me down. Don't let me down.
Ngayong linggo, 12:00 ng tanghali. Dito lang sa Net 25.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's dance together sa Net 25.
Bring you more stories here on Mata ng Agila International. West Africa's popular and cheap form of transportation is the motorcycle taxi. Electronic motorcycle provides ease to drivers as they run smoothly without noise compared to gasoline-powered motorcycles. Additionally, the electronic model helps motorbike drivers to make more money than using a petrol bike. According to Olufunmi J.P. Kupoy, Director of Zed Motors, they have produced thousands of electronic motors, which are available in several African countries. Increasingly, riders in Benin and Togo choose electronic motorcycles over gasoline-powered ones because they are less expensive and are environment-friendly.
World gas giant Uniper said the German government would need to spend an additional 25 billion euros under a planned nationalization to stave off the firm's collapse in the wake of Russia's war against Ukraine. In September, the German government agreed to nationalize the debt-laden company after Moscow's closure of a key gas pipeline and sky energy prices left Uniper facing bankruptcy. After being primarily given an 8 billion euro cash injection, the government will finance the rescue out of a 200 billion euro special fund to lessen the impact of the energy crisis on households and businesses. On its part, Uniper is set to ask shareholders for their approval of the rescue deal on December 19. Germany's government takes charge to help Uniper as limited gas supplies are forecasted to collapse Europe's biggest economy.
In a shocking finish, Germany gets beaten at the World Cup by Japan. Japan stuns Germany and the rest of football fans with a 2-1 score, etching another big World Cup upset in history. Mia Villa has the story.
Before substitute Doan Ritsu tied the game 15 minutes from time, they wasted numerous opportunities to increase their lead, including forcing Japan's Suichi Gonda into an incredible double save from Serge Gnabry and Jonas Huffman. Takuma Asano, another substitute, scored from a difficult angle 8 minutes later to Japan a startling lead. Germany was unable to overcome a resolute Japanese defense as time ran out, handing Hansi Flick's team a humiliating loss in their inaugural World Cup game. One of the greatest outcomes in the history of the country is the Japanese team's wild celebrations after the final whistle. Japan will play Costa Rica in the opening match on Sunday, and a victory for them will almost certainly advance them to the round of 16. The creator of the Japanese manga series Blue Lock joins the celebration of Japan's World Cup win with a new art. The famous series is taking over the internet alongside Japan's national soccer team. Fans of the series project that Blue Lock is real, and according to them, the Blue Lock just proved them as much.
The oldest member of K-pop phenomenon BTS will begin his military service on December 13, becoming the first in the band to enlist, local media reported Thursday. According to the Yonhap news agency, the 29-year-old Kim Seok-jin will begin his mandatory 5-week training at Yeoncheon in Gyeonggi province before being deployed to a frontline unit. Earlier, the BTS senior member had given hints on social media that he had been assigned to the front line. The news made fans emotional as they expressed their concerns about Jin's safety. BTS, being credited for generating billions for the South Korean economy, has triggered a years-long debate in South Korea over whether they deserve exemptions. Meanwhile, last month, their agency confirmed that the K-pop group members will carry out their obligatory military service, starting with Jin. Last August, Seoul's defense minister permitted the BTS members to continue performing and preparing for international concerts while undertaking military duties.
Indonesia's autobiography and Wami Alcazaran's Bold Eagle emerge as the big winners in the 10th Q Cinema International Film Fest last night. Stephanie Mayo has the details.
The Indonesian drama thriller autobiography and Wami Alcazaran's Bold Eagle came out the big winners in last night's 10th Q Cinema International Film Fest Awards night. Held at the poolside at Novotel Hotel in Araneta City, Q Cinema handed out pylon trophies to the best of the best in local and Asian cinema. Autobiography beat 7 nominees under the Asian Next Wave section of the fest, taking home $5,000 in cash, while Bold Eagle reigned over the QC Short section, or the 6 Q Cinema-funded narrative short films, taking home a cash prize of 150,000 pesos. Aside from the Best Film Award, Indonesian filmmaker Makbul Mubarak also took home the Best Director Award. Meanwhile, Q Cinema handed out a pylon trophy to Checo Baisho of Japanese film Plan 75 for Best Lead Performance. the fest's only acting award, which is the first in local awards. Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte, the brainchild of Q Cinema, graced the event and served as one of the presenters in several major awards. The night capped off with fireworks, also to celebrate the fest's 10 years of existence in showcasing not only Filipino films, but also foreign films from various prestigious international film fests, including Cannes, Berlin, and Venice. To catch the big winners and other foreign and local films in the Q Cinema lineup, catch them until the 26th this Saturday in select movie theaters. Stephanie Mayo reporting for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
It's Thursday, not quite the weekend yet, but to help you go through this week, here's a quote from Walter Anderson, an American painter and writer. It is only when we take chances that our lives improve. The initial and the most difficult risk that we need to take is to become honest.
But you have to be honest first with yourself, right?
Which you realize nowadays is not an easy thing to do. It is a great daily struggle.
That's true. Well, and you know one more thing? Sometimes we want other people to be honest, but we cannot be honest with them, right? So it's really hard, but you have to take that risk because who wants to be in a relationship, like whatever kind of relationship, wants to be in that kind of relationship where the intentions are not clear, right?
And every single day you have to do it. If you make the mistake today of being dishonest, there is still the next day to keep moving forward and do better.
Dishonesty comes in many forms. It's not just about like relationships, right? Oh, and by the way, we would like to thank the organizers of the Luminaire Awards because last night we actually won and we're very sorry that we didn't make it. There you go. The 6th Asia Pacific Luminaire Awards. Thank you so much for recognizing Nina and I. There you go. We're very sorry we couldn't make it last night because of the broadcast.
But are equally thankful that we were given those awards. We would like to thank, of course, the award-giving body for, well, choosing us. You and me both. Yes, thank you very much. And we would like to thank our Mata ng Agila International family for accepting the awards on our behalf.
And of course, we share the honor with everyone here in the
definitely.
team. Congratulations, you guys.
Congratulations to us, actually. Yes.
And now that is a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.